Hello. Going to go over last week's lesson before we start anything. They talked in the lesson about comparing the videos for a vacuum cleaner from the 1930s and 40s to those of today, and asked us to then discuss the different stereotypes between men and women, or representations of men and women. I felt a bit uncomfortable with that at the time, because actually you can't really compare one advert aimed at men today compared with an advert aimed at women almost 80 or 90 years ago, and expect to really understand anything about current issues with stereotypes. It's very old-fashioned. I don't necessarily feel that it's relevant or within the remit of this course. It's more of a historical issue that I don't really think is that relevant, to be honest. But hopefully you watch this video.
Let's face it, vacuuming can be a pain. Shackled by the weight and tethered by the cord.
And you remember
the minute you finish, more.
And you remember the other one. Now the course guidance said, for when it was asking questions about how men and women represented differently, or how the advert's different, it said only a woman is seen doing the cleaning in the first video with a male voiceover, and then in the more recent one, a woman features at the beginning of the advert, but we do not see her doing all the cleaning. The advert shows that the issue is still a female issue as she's pondering the problems associated with using a corded vacuum cleaner. However, it's a man who does the cleaning. The advert is aimed at the technological features that a man would supposedly be interested in. The inventor of the product is used to back up the product's capabilities, enticing the man into believing in the product. It's all well and good saying that if you're comparing it to an advert from the 1940s, but I didn't really feel that comfortable with that, because there are many adverts such as this one.
How good is your cordless vacuum? Does it have enough power? Can it tackle the toughest dirt? Does it clean for long enough on a single charge? Does it look this good? Introducing the new VaxBlade 2 Max. With almost 3 times the power of any cordless we've ever produced, it outperforms the UK's top 10 best-selling cordless vacuums in independent tests. That's the cleaning performance of the best corded uprights in a sleek, lightweight design. The VaX core processor monitors power up to 1,000 times a second, helping to give you optimum performance on both carpets and hard floors.
Now, I would say that was a much more representative advert of what we see nowadays. It's fairly gender neutral. Yes, it's gender neutral. It's a woman in the advert. It's a woman doing a voiceover. It talks about the technological issues. So I think we should bear that in mind when we're looking at these kind of questions. That this is not. I mean, I've never seen an advert like this on TV myself. So I don't 100% agree with what the course is getting at there. But it is what it is. I think essentially what it is trying to get at is that you might be able to advertise to men more effectively if you talk about the product's capabilities. The question about the toys, I didn't really understand what the purpose of that question was and how that was relevant to our course, so moving on from that one. This one, I think, is fairly obvious. What they were trying to say is, pink is for girls, blue is for boys, but surprise, actually it didn't used to be like that. What it's really getting at is, are stereotypes a good way of targeting an audience? And I think essentially, yes, they are, or they can be. And the answer they've given here is stereotypes are only useful as a guide to how to target an audience to get your message across. And conversely, I suppose they're saying they shouldn't actually be used to as a basis for understanding how men and women actually act. So generally speaking, we associate green with go and red with stop. And why might that be? So we have a look at this colour guide here. So this colour guide is associating colours with different emotions, and I want you to draw some conclusions about this, and to ask you to see if you could identify any contradictions in this apparent colour guide. And one they were particularly interested in was BP. BP being one of the world's largest oil companies that cause a lot of destruction to the world. So to saying they're peaceful, health and growth associated with growth are not particularly true. Interesting that they've put the monster symbol there. I'm not sure anyone would associate monster with any of health, peace, or growth. So for some of these, it's only a very tenuous link between the colour and the colours that have been chosen. And I'm sure for some of the designers of these logos, it probably wasn't one of their considerations at all. But to sum up, what they're trying to get at is that red is used because it's associated with danger, and green is associated with the word go. So moving on to this week's lesson, we're talking about the purpose of the communication. And I want us to think about the four main reasons for communicating: to inform, to educate, to entertain, to sell. Products can have a combination of all of these, therefore a company will have to decide what its main focus is. So when advertising a product, companies will think about how they're going to use text and image and colours to most effectively advertise their product to a certain audience and to make sure that their purpose is clear to the audience. Okay, so your first task today is going to be to look at this worksheet, which you can find in the class files for our class. And you need to go through to each of these websites and decide what's the purpose of the website. Is it to entertain, educate, or inform, sell, and so on? Now, I want to go over, or try and explain to you what the difference between educate and inform is. You can think of it like this. When you've been educated about something, you have a deep understanding and experience around a subject. If you just have information or have been informed of something, you just have some basic important information about the subject, but you don't really understand anything beyond the basic, most important parts. So for example, you could easily know all the kings and queens of England in order, and the years that they were born, the years that they reigned for, and you'd probably call that information because it's just basic facts. You don't really know anything else. If you could actually discuss the relationships between these people, the pros and cons of each king or queen, their strengths and weaknesses, how they interacted with other monarchs, those kind of things, then you'd have an education about it. So there is a difference between someone who's educated about something and someone who just has some basic information about the same topic. So your task is to go to these websites and decide if you think their purpose is to educate, entertain, inform, or sell, or some combination of those, who the audience is, so what age range, can you draw any conclusions about the colours used, about the emotional meaning, and can you give a reason for your choice that you made for audience and purpose? Okay, moving on from that, we're going to talk about target audience visibility. When you're presenting information to someone, whether it's a video, presentation, or written information, you need to consider how visible the platform that you're using is. And by visibility, they mean, is it public facing, so anyone can access it, or is it targeted, meaning that it's been sent directly to a person and possibly that person only? So for task 7, there is going to be a forms activity that I want you to access, and you're going to sort the forms of information based on whether they're public facing or targeted. Content limitations. Different publishing platforms have different content limits. So say YouTube videos standard accounts are restricted to 15 minutes. I'm not sure how accurate that is because I only have a standard account and I've done more than 15 minutes. But anyway, A-level and university essays are restricted to a word count of 5,000 words. Newspaper articles are restricted to their position in the paper, determined by the editor. Going back to that one, what that means is you may have what you think is a very important story as a journalist, but if it doesn't make it to the front page, is it actually going to be seen by people you want it to be? If it's hidden in the middle, obviously the front page is going to be the story that's going to be seen and read the most. A broadcast journalist gets told by their editor to make their clips a certain length. So you have to. So, for example, if I had as a teacher, I had to make a video to advertise this course to other students in year 8, and I only had 3 minutes to do it, and so that's incredibly difficult to get all the information you need across in 3 minutes. It's the same kind of thing. Twitter has changed the number of characters per tweet, increasing the number limit from 140 to 280 characters per tweet. Right, so task 8 is you're going to read the Twitter Trials 280 character limit tweet article as linked, and you've got 2 questions to answer. That will be on forms. Okay, so this slide, availability of information, they have written a sentence that says, when information is communicated, it can depend on how available the information can be communicated. That sentence to me makes very, very little sense. Maybe you can make sense of it, but I'm not sure what they mean by that. But it says location. Whether the information can be accessed where you are. Real time, whether the information is sent out in a live feed, traffic updates and travel updates, and weather forecasts. Delay effects, whether there are any reasons to delay when the information is to be communicated. For example, your boss may want you to know about the information you're communicating before you tell the rest of the office. And so task 9. What could happen if you publish some information without your employer knowing? So that's, again, I'm going to ask you to do that on the forms, and I may give you a few clues on that. And then final part, what information is to be achieved by distributing information? When you're communicating any information, you need to consider the impact you want to achieve when it reaches your audience. For example, an advert that promotes Christmas tree decorations is going to be more successful and have a bigger impact if it's released in late October or early November, rather than if it's released in February. So the idea behind advertising closer to Christmas is the increase in sales of decorations. Impacts trying to be created could be to benefit an individual or a group of people, to increase sales, save money, to motivate people in some way. So, for example, the top one, to benefit an individual or group of people. If we're in the middle of a pandemic, like we currently are, we need the information to be about things like hand washing and face masks to be distributed as soon as possible, not wait for a few months till the pandemic is basically over before we start distributing that information. The impact you're trying to achieve will depend on the purpose of the information. Now, task 10 here is something we're not doing, so you can ignore task 10. I won't be asking you any questions about that.